There are cars you drive. There are cars you admire. And then there's that one car, the car that teaches you everything you need to know about life, mechanics, and the delicate balance between performance and complete automotive destruction. For me, that car was the Mitsubishi Galant A160 GL. My grandfather's beige, boxy, gloriously 1985 sedan was where I first learned to drive a manual, where I discovered the joys of fixing things with a hammer, and where I also, on occasion, learned the fine art of completely trashing a vehicle. And yet, despite my best efforts, the Galant never gave up. It rattled, it groaned, but it kept on going, like an unkillable cockroach with steel bumpers. But this car wasn't just my personal driving instructor. No, no, no. This was Mitsubishi's first true stepping stone into greatness. And today, we're going to talk about why the fourth generation Mitsubishi Galant A160 deserves far more respect than it gets. Let's rewind to 1976. Mitsubishi wasn't exactly the first name that came to mind when you thought of performance. Back then, they were best known for making reliable family sedans, economic hatchbacks, and, for some reason, fighter jets. But they had a plan to take on Toyota's Corona and Nissan's Bluebird with something more refined, more advanced, and, crucially, more interesting. Enter the Mitsubishi Galant A160, a European-inspired Japanese sedan that, on paper, seemed like just another commuter car. But under the skin, it was anything but ordinary. You see, this was the car that introduced silent shaft technology, a revolutionary system that made a 4-cylinder engine as smooth as a 6-cylinder. It worked so well that Porsche, yes, Porsche, licensed the technology and stuffed it into their 944. So to sum up, this car was so good, even the Germans took notes. Now, at first glance, the Mitsubishi Galant A160 looks about as exciting as a government-issued fleet car. The kind of thing you'd expect to see parked outside a municipal office, driven by a bureaucrat whose biggest thrill in life is getting a fresh batch of printer paper. But don't be fooled. This seemingly unremarkable sedan had some very interesting features that made it more than just another beige commuter box. Silent shaft system. Because smoothness matters, even in a beige sedan. Mitsubishi's engineers, in their infinite wisdom, figured out that small 4-cylinder engines tend to be about as refined as a washing machine on its final spin cycle. So they developed the silent shaft system, a clever setup involving counter-rotating balance shafts that significantly reduced vibrations. The result? A 4-cylinder engine that ran as smoothly as a straight 6 without the extra weight or fuel consumption. It was so effective that Porsche, of all companies, bought the rights and used it in their 944. Yes, this beige, Grandpa spec Mitsubishi Galant had technology that Porsche thought was worthy of their sports cars. A glove box large enough to store an entire lunch buffet. You know how modern cars have glove boxes just big enough to hold a warranty booklet and maybe a pair of sunglasses? Not this thing. The Galant's glove box was so massive you could fit a full 3-course meal, a thermos of coffee, and probably a small toolbox inside. Some say Mitsubishi designed it to store important things like maps and maintenance logs. But let's be real, this was prime real estate for an entire stash of snacks, a pack of Marlboros, and a few cassette tapes of Eagles' greatest hits. A dashboard that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. Okay, maybe not exactly a spaceship, but for 1980, the Galant's dashboard was properly futuristic. Mitsubishi decided that square gauges and angled controls were the way of the future. So they designed an instrument panel that looked like something straight out of a 70s sci-fi flick. The speedometer and tachometer sat in deep square bezels, with a cluster of rocker switches that made you feel like you were about to launch a missile rather than turn on the headlights. And if you were lucky enough to have the higher trims, you even got a digital clock, which, back then, was considered peak technology. A manual gearbox that felt like shifting through concrete. Now, this is where things got interesting. Most manuals today are engineered for precision and ease, but back in the 80s, it was a different story. The Galant's gearbox was notoriously stubborn, with a shifter feel akin to wrestling a metal rod through a bag of gravel. Every shift required determination, brute strength and possibly a prayer. Miss a gear, and the gearbox would respond with an unforgiving mechanical clunk that made you question your life choices. But once you got the hang of it, it was weirdly satisfying. Every shift felt like an accomplishment, and it forced you to actually engage with the car rather than mindlessly flicking through gears like you would in a modern hatchback. An indestructible engine. The 4G32 engine found in most A160 Galants was as tough as nails. It didn't make a lot of power, but it also refused to die, no matter how badly you treated it. You could overheat it, under-rev it, skip oil changes, or even run it on questionable quality fuel, and it would still keep going like an old war veteran who had seen it all. It didn't ask for much, just basic maintenance and the occasional smack with a wrench when things got stubborn. And if something did break, the engine bay was so simple and spacious that you could fix most things with a screwdriver, a spanner, and sheer willpower. But the best version of the A160? That would be the GSR, the car that took Mitsubishi from boring sedan maker to rally champion. For most people, the Galant was just another family sedan. But Mitsubishi had bigger plans. They took the standard A160 and tweaked it for performance, creating the Galant GSR, a car that paved the way for Mitsubishi's rally success. It came with a 2.0-lit engine, a proper upgrade over the standard models. It had tighter suspension, meaning it could almost go around corners with enthusiasm. And, of course, it had aggressive styling, because if you're going to make a sporty version of a beige sedan, it had better look the part. But most importantly, this was the first Mitsubishi to properly dip its toes into motorsports. It may not have been a full-fledged rally monster yet, but the DNA of future legends like the Lancer Evolution started right here. So, while most A160s ended up as commuter cars for accountants and retirees, the GSR was Mitsubishi's first step towards greatness. And that makes it properly special. The 4th-gen Galant A160 was produced from 1980 to 1987, and Mitsubishi didn't hold back. They offered sedans, wagons, coupes, and even a 2-door hardtop, because nothing screams executive luxury like removing 2 doors and pretending it's a sports car. In some markets, it was sold as the Plymouth Sapporo or the Dodge Challenger, because apparently Americans weren't quite ready for a car called the Galant. But no matter what badge it wore, the A160 quietly set the stage for Mitsubishi's future dominance. And then, they decided to get a little bit insane. Now, this is where things get really interesting. The 60 wasn't just another commuter car. It was also Mitsubishi's first proper attempt at going sporty, laying the groundwork for future performance models. The GK GSR variant came with a 2.6-liter engine, stiffer suspension, and some rather striking bodywork that made it look significantly faster than it actually was. But what really made it special was the fact that it served as the direct predecessor to the legendary Galant VR4, which, as we all know, eventually gave birth to the Lancer Evolution. The Galant wasn't an immediate motorsport icon, but it was the stepping stone that helped Mitsubishi understand what it needed to compete. It paved the way for turbocharging, all-wheel drive, and that signature aggressive styling that later defined the brand's high-performance cars. It was the car that whispered to Mitsubishi engineers, "What if we made this faster?" Today, the Mitsubishi Galant A160 is largely forgotten, replaced in memory by faster, flashier machines. But to those who know, to those who have driven one, worked on one, or completely ruined one, this car represents the beginning of something great. It wasn't the fastest, it wasn't the prettiest, but it was bulletproof, brilliant, and way ahead of its time. So if you ever see one, take a moment, because you're not just looking at an old Mitsubishi, you're looking at the start of a legend. If you enjoyed this trip down Mitsubishi's forgotten past, hit that subscribe button and stick around for more deep dives into the cars that made history. This is Carisma, and we'll see you next time.